Welcome to the Natural History Cupboard. Come on in.
And welcome back to the Natural History Cupboard podcast, the place where the weird and wonderful parts of the natural world come together. I'm your host, Gareth, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Aaron. Say hi.
Hi.
For those of you who are watching this as a video format, because hopefully we'll have made this as a video. If it's all gone terribly wrong, ignore the previous message, but we're recording in person, in the same room.
To be fair, I think our listeners will hear the difference too. I think the audio is better in this room. And also the fact that I think you're going to find as you listen to this episode that the conversation between the two of us is going to flow a little bit better because we're actually next to each other.
No, what you mean?
Lag, buffer.
I'm always buffering. I'm always lagging. But yes, yeah, it's quite nice. We are in our very own natural history cupboard. It's been a long while.
It has been. The patrons will already know this because I've mentioned it. And some of you who followed us from the start will also know we started with a cupboard, although it was COVID, so we were actually social distancing. So you were above the cupboard.
Yeah,
well, you were in.
I was in the cupboard.
I was in a cupboard beneath you.
Yeah,
we were in double-decker cupboard, and then we were able to do it in the cupboard together. And then we left the zoo, and so it's been the best part of 3 seasons since we've had a place to actually record in the same place regularly with. So this is really exciting. As bare bones as it appears right now, it will evolve, but this is dead exciting now.
Yeah, it's really good. Well, what have you been up to other than getting this place ready?
And preparing for my next creature feature, which I mean it's a huge animal. So
we've done blue whale. We can't do that.
Well, no, it's not that huge, I suppose, but yeah, it is one that's taken up some time to kind of guide myself through. But no, other than that, not a great deal. I had today I've seen a lot of wildlife videos that have been sent in to me for purposes of identification stuff, things like jays and field voles and that sort of thing. But I don't think I've done much actual wildlifing myself this week. I think I've been pretty. I tell you what I did do actually. We went down the beach because the weather's been pretty good. We went rock pooling. We set up we had a nice big bucket, put some sand in the bottom, some stones, some seaweed the seaweed that's floating, not anything attached, and a little shelter. And we went in with a net to pick up some shrimp, and so that my daughter could have a good look at them up close. And then, of course, very quickly move them back, because obviously it's very sunny, so you don't really want them to be too exposed,
too heated up.
Yeah, so
otherwise you get cooked shrimp.
Yeah,
that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, but it was good. She was fascinated, absolutely fascinated. So that's a win. So those animals, ambassador animals, then went back to their homes. Yeah.
What the heck was that? Well, I've not been much either, actually.
No.
I went and picked up some really cool frogs the other day.
Oh yes. You did tell me what species.
They're called Taylor's bug-eyed tree frogs, which I think is a really cool name. Doesn't do them justice, though. I think they should be called bird poo frogs.
Bird poo frogs.
Because I mean, there are frogs that are called bird poo frogs.
Yes, I was going to say that we reported on those last year or the year before. Yeah,
but these ones, they do look like a little pile of bird poo. They're basically about that big. The ones that I picked up from another college further up the country to bring down, and I had my students set them up today in their new home. And the moment they went in, they sort of settled in and just sat there on the leaf, and it literally just looked like a little glob of bird poo, like something that the pigeons had left on my car when I went out to get in my car this afternoon. About the same sort of consistency in how it looked. But the other night I had them at home because I got back late and kept them at home, and had them sat there whilst I was sitting in the living room. And the only way to describe their call, as I found out through doing a little bit of digging up into their call, apart from the fact that no one has any recorded sound of these guys floating around on the internet, which is really irritating, that the call itself by the males, so I definitely know there's a male in that group, it sounds like the sound of a smoke alarm when it's in low battery. You know, that just every now and again, beep.
Yeah.
Beep. That's what they sound like. And occasionally it sounds like a slightly rusty sort of door. But most of the time, I'm going to nickname them the fire alarm, or the smoke alarm frogs, because they just sound like a smoke alarm that's run out of batteries, which after a while started to get a little irritating, because especially if you didn't know what they were, you'd think, the heck was that? Is it out? Is it? I don't know. But yeah, that's what they sound like. They're gorgeous
cool,
little frogs.
You got other frogs in the centre, though, haven't you?
Yes, we've got bumblebee poison dart frogs.
Lovely.
Look nothing like the Transformer. Look much cooler. European tree frogs, which we've covered on the podcast before, and they are stunning little frogs.
They've got an interesting call as well, haven't they?
Very, very like a trill. Almost.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, most people tend to think of frogs and frog calls as just ribbit.
Ribbit, yeah.
That is nothing close to the range that frogs make sound-wise. There's everything from screams to sort of almost booming sounds, right the way through to those little trills. Yeah, the really bizarre frog calls. It's sad that it's almost like owl sounds, hinting at what's going on later on today. That owl sounds, people tend to think of them as being all twit-twoo.
Yeah.
But that's only one or two species that sound like that. And specifically in the UK, it's the tawny owl.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but really cool little creatures.
Yeah, you show me some photos of some of the definitely of the tree frogs. And I think of one other species that you got, but I can't remember what one it was. But yeah, they are cool. They are very cool. Yeah.
Right. Well, shall we move into? Should we hop into the news?
Let's do it.
It's the news!
Right, well, we're into this week's news. Aaron, tell us what we've got.
Well, every week, the weird and wonderful world of natural history offers up an embarrassment of riches when it comes to news and interesting stories. And though we are obviously a small team here in the Natural History Cupboard, we like to keep you, our fellow cupboard dwellers, up to date on the everything that is exciting, good, or odd about it. So with that said, we'll dive on into the Natural History Cupboard newsreel and
take it away.
I think it's my turn first, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It is. So coming to us from Live Science, you're gonna have to kind of forgive us. There's going to be a few teething issues with the new setup. I've got a massive laptop.
He hasn't got a teleprompter yet, honestly.
No teleprompter at the moment, and not quite confident enough to do it by heart just yet. So this one comes to us from Live Science, and the headline is Jupiter may be the reason why Earth has a moon, new study hints. It's pretty widely known and accepted nowadays that our moon was formed in the aftermath of a collision here on Earth. In summary, a large body from within our solar system hit our planet, causing debris to be thrown off planet and form over time, shaping into the moon. But now we may just know what caused the collision in the first place. Scientists also know that early in the solar system's life, an event of great instability occurred, during which the four gas giants, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune, they were pretty close together. However, over time, gravitational interaction pulled Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus out, but it pulled Jupiter closer in. And in doing so, the gravitational pull of Jupiter itself upset a protoplanet called Theia, and sent it hurtling into our planet. Yeah.
And you didn't make a Uranus joke.
No, I very deliberately try to go with Uranus, as in the Greek Titan,
Oh,
the original
fine.
primordial Titan.
Well, you remember last week, Aaron?
Vaguely.
I brought you the disappointing and irritating news of people running wolves down.
Oh yes, yes.
And the week before that, in fact, I had the original story of people tying up wolves that they'd run down and taking it into a bar before beating them up and killing them.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, none of that this week, but I just thought I'd remind you of that anyway, just because I could. But this is actually another North American predator, and another reaction of people and how they deal with it. However, this one has a happy ending.
Oh, okay.
For all parties concerned, because this particular story comes to us from MSN.com. Mountain lion that made school go into lockdown turned out to be a very fat cat eating a rat. So no one in the school was harmed. No mountain lions were harmed because there were none there. And the only one that was harmed was the rat that the very fat cat ate, which sounds like some sort of story.
I was going to say, this is an alpha block for a minute. The fat cat on the mat ate the rat.
Yeah, it's got to be. So in Washington State, Groff Elementary School went into lockdown when someone reportedly sighted a mountain lion prowling around the edge of the campus.
Goodness grief.
It turned out to be a very fat cat, which it does highlight just how bad people can be at size difference for animals. What's better is, and I love this, and it illustrates everything that is hilarious about news articles like this, is it has a picture of a mountain lion, just in case you didn't know what a mountain lion was.
Of course.
But it also has a picture of a fat cat, just in case you didn't know what an overweight house cat looked like. Just in case. And it has them both labeled so that you know which one is which. Which I think is important.
That's it. That is important, based off of the mix-up that caused the school to go to lockdown, and you know, the confusion that happens on the moor just outside here.
Oh, very much so. So yes, there you go. A fun North American predator story that doesn't actually involve a North American predator. Large predator?
It's a predator in North America.
Yeah,
it's just not a large one. Well, this one was, but not in the right way, I suppose. No. So this one again comes to us from Live Science. Scientists discover once in a billion-year event 2 life forms merging to create a new cell part. In what is being rightly referred to as groundbreaking discovery, scientists have found the first known structure capable of converting nitrogen that is pulled out from the atmosphere into something that the cell can actually use. The newly dubbed nitroplast is thought to have evolved about 100 million years ago, potentially from a microbe in the ocean that was kind of swallowed or enveloped by an algal cell. And researchers thought that the relationship was symbiotic. However, it turns out that the relationship is not one of exchange, where the microbe gives the algal cell a means to draw in nitrogen from its surroundings, and the cell giving that microbe a home. In fact, the microbe took on a completely new form, becoming a proper organelle within the cell, whose metabolism is actually directly linked to the algal cell itself. So it's actually part of the cell.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool, yeah.
Well, I'm going to take you back down now. So I brought you up with my story.
You son of a...
I'm going to bring you back down again, because this one irritated me highly. So do you like Heineken?
No.
No, I'm not. It's not great. It's not one of my favorites either. Do you like Bulmer's cider?
No, I don't. It's not one of the names I can recall.
No. Well, you're going to like them even less in a minute, because it turns out the brewing brand Heineken owns the Bulmer's brand.
Right.
And in this article from BBC News, they have basically felled an entire orchard of apple trees,
right,
to then sell the land off for profit as housing. Now, this was a 300-acre orchard that has been there since 1997, near Offa's in Monmouthshire in South Wales, and they clear cut the entire thing and are going to sell the land off for housing.
Wow.
Which environmental groups are
huge.
obviously quite outraged by. Now, obviously, apples are, it's a monoculture,
Yeah.
but orchards do an awful lot. There's food there for animals. There's lots of pollinating insects
Yeah.
that will rely on that space. And
Birds.
just generally, orchards themselves are a lot less sort of impactful on the environment than a lot of other monocultures. And especially since those trees have been growing there since 1997, that's not a massive amount of time, but still 300 acres worth of trees clear cut to sell
Huge
for it.
space.
Would you like to know what defense they had as to why they did this?
Not particularly, but go on.
Basically, apparently people are drinking less cider, so it was less profitable to keep an orchard going, and they decided to clear cut it and sell it. So I'm not saying that everyone should boycott Heineken and Bulmers, but I can't agree with their ethics realistically.
Can't say I liked either in the first place.
No, I'll stick to a more local brand of cider, and I think I'll just have a Guinness instead. Get that. See if we get that sweet Guinness promotion. You know.
You say that, but I literally after you said of it, I don't like Guinness either.
What's wrong with you?
Oh. So this again comes to us from Life Science. I tried to keep it simple this week because of all the other things that could possibly go wrong, recording together in person and trying to do video in it and having the studio. So I tried to keep it simple. So yeah, again, Life Science. And this one actually you wanted, but I didn't know until I'd already taken it. So it is giant prehistoric salmon had tusk-like teeth, just like a warthog's. The largest salmon ever discovered was a bit of a brute, it would seem, sporting tusks akin to those of warthogs. Now, these fish are thought to have possibly rutted, dug and sifted through the sediment, and also even possibly fought off predators with these impressive teeth. Now, originally, the saber-toothed salmon was thought to have had its teeth arranged in a saber-tooth-like manner, like Smilodon fatalis, so drooping down like that, curving back. However, more recent finds have revealed that these fish actually had their teeth oriented in a way that where it comes out laterally from the jaws. So yeah,
I think
much
of them
more tusk-like.
I'm thinking of them as almost those cartoony style, like whenever 1960s and 1950s cartoons would draw anyone who was from the jungle, they would draw the bone through the nose. That's what I'm getting the image of.
Yeah,
you know, the pointy bone through the nose sort of situation.
It's got sharp, slightly curved teeth. Must have been saber-toothed.
Exactly. I thought you were going to make the arc connection with those.
No, I didn't feel like bringing up arc this time.
Fair enough. Well, I brought you down with the Bulmers and the Heineken story and clear cutting. I'm going to bring you back up.
It's like a roller coaster.
I know. I'm going up and down, up and down. This is also from the BBC News, and it's London Zoo seeks memories and memorabilia to mark its 200th anniversary. Now, London Zoo is not the oldest zoo in the UK. That actually goes to Bristol Zoo, although
unfortunately
Bristol Zoo in its original form no longer exists now.
Yeah, that zoo. Yeah, and you can't.
Depends how you want to term it, but yeah, London Zoo is up there for one of the oldest zoos in the country. And they are basically seeking people's memories as well as memorabilia to put on display. Obviously, the older the better, and the more unique the better as well. And some of the submissions that the public have sent in for this display in 2026, so that will be their 200th anniversary, is a 1930s ostrich egg, a commemorative polar bear soap, and a first edition of Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species.
Wow.
Are artifacts that are ready to go in the archive. I mean, to be mentioned, you know, to have a bar of soap and then the origin of species, that's quite a jump. But yeah, if you have any memorabilia of London Zoo, then get in contact with them, because they are basically taking submissions for this well, I would assume exhibition that's probably going to run most of 2026 to celebrate their 200th anniversary. So
that's really cool, and congratulations to them. I suppose we'll congratulate them at the time, really. But
yeah, well, maybe we should go to London Zoo. Maybe
that's
this
a good
time
idea.
we should go
I'll be
to
awake.
London Zoo. Yeah,
Maybe this time. Well, you did. Maybe this time I should go to London Zoo.
yeah, we'll drag you there.
And that about wraps it up for this week's Natural History Covered newsreel. Guys, if you guys at home have any articles or topics of news that you feel we should cover here in Natural History Covered, please do send them in. You can use any of the normal methods. We've gotten rid of it from the intro, but you can use Facebook, email, Twitter, Instagram, any of the usual methods. I won't think of an inventive thing right now because, like I said, this is a bit of a new vibe going on today. Don't want to confuse things, but that leads us on nicely to the main article. And this week I am doing the main article, the main topic of discussion, and that is it's a bit of a fun one, I suppose. Depends who you are and where you are. But infamous boat sinking orcas spotted hundreds of miles from where they should be, baffling scientists. So, like I say, good news for some, potentially not so good for others, though. The Iberian subpopulation of orcas, a pod that includes around 40 individuals, is not where it should be right now.
Where are they?
They are actually further north. They're up near Galicia in northern Spain. Where they should be right now is the Strait of Gibraltar. So around spring, it's between the Pillars of Heracles, so the Rock of Gibraltar and Morocco, where this pod of orcas should be. However, scientists think the reason is because tuna fish have might be entering the area early, and the orcas are following them in. They think that because other orcas are also in the area. So the place where the Iberian subpopulation is, the ones that were famous for attacking the boats last year, well, since 2020 actually, where they are is actually Malpica, which is off the coast of Galicia, like I said. However, others have come and they are around the Bay of Biscay and the Portuguese coast right now. And yeah, they think it's because tuna have migrated into the area early, and so the orca have changed their hunting strategies to adapt and follow suit.
Which ones are they? Are they the ones that have attacked boats? Are they a transient pod, or
No.
are they a local population?
No, I think they're resident to that area.
So does that make that? I can't remember what the new classification for them was.
Oh, now I can't answer that because the reason why is because that is, as far as I'm aware, that's specific to the North Pacific.
Specific to the North Pacific.
Yeah. That's where that. So that was a news article. What, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
That's where that happened up in North Pacific. Not near the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. This group, they actually started attacking boats. I think it was around the Canary Islands, and then it followed up. It traced upwards, and what they worked out was actually it was adolescents that were doing it, and they were doing it for a bit of a jolly, and then they thought it was so fun. Yeah, they thought, yeah, basically orca chavs, and they thought it was so fun that they told that through cetacean long distance cetacean communication, they told mates and relatives in other pods, and it spread all the way up to the point that
your mate, have you tried messing with them boats?
Exactly. They were doing it. They were doing it bilingually, because this got all the way up to off the coast of Scotland, where they started attacking boats too. Interestingly, though, I only ever heard that it was the adolescents doing it. But this article actually
wasn't there an adult female as well?
Yes, it brings up the actual original one that was doing it, and it wasn't just an adult female, it was an adult female that was pregnant, which leads me to believe that these attacks, that apparently they were started by her, they might have been started because somebody was getting a bit too close in their boat to a female that was about to give birth. Now I don't know that for fact, but that's what it sounds like. That sounds like that sounds like mum is defending her unborn calf to me.
And then a bunch of chavvy orcas on the side went, that looks fun. Let's do that.
Or did she tell the
What?
young males,
you go and do that,
to do it to protect the pod?
Could
I mean, I am anthropomorphizing greatly there, but we do know that they have a complex level of communication.
Or she was like, oh, for God's sake, just leave me alone. Go and play with a boat.
Smack the boat.
Go and play with a boat. Cool.
They've sunk 3. Of all the attacks, most of them have caused, they've caused a little bit of damage here and there. Some have been no damage, but there's been 3 boats that they've sent to Davy Jones's locker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not great. My dad owning a boat, nowhere near where any of these are. His is in North Wales,
which is a little bit close to Scotland.
It is a little bit, but it's on the wrong coast.
Yes, I know.
It's on the wrong coast. Thankfully, no orcas around there. But the few times I've been out on it, I've been like, this would be terrifying if one of these did turn up. And there is very much the part of me that thinks, if this did happen, I don't blame any person who's on a boat and their boat is being taken down by a large marine predator. And the thought of being in the water, or even being in a small dinghy and having an orca around you, and even though it could be playing, that's an animal that could very easily kill you. I don't really have any qualms about someone defending themselves in that situation, or at least trying to get the animal to go away from them. So when people start messing around with them, that obviously there is an issue. And from the reports that I've seen of it, and the sort of interviews that has been happening with a lot of the boat owners around that part of Spain and Portugal, and that the boat owners don't want, obviously, the orcas doing this, and they are also very hesitant to do anything to them, because they don't want to spark something that effectively becomes almost human orca conflict.
War.
Because they both, the boat owners know that these are intelligent animals, and also legally they're protected as well.
I was going to say also the Spanish, at least, I haven't seen anything from the Portuguese. Not to say that there isn't, but I've not read anything from the Portuguese. But the Spanish, at the very least, are at the moment very respectful of the fact that this pod is endangered. So yeah,
it's good to see that everyone's basically keeping their cool about it, even though there have been 3 boats sunk by them, and it would be a terrifying experience to be on one.
It would be terrifying. I think though you also have to keep it in perspective that, and this is the same for shark attacks as well. It is hard to wrap your head around it, and I think it's hard to wrap your head around it. But if you imagine how many boats are on the water every single second of every single day,
the odds are quite small.
3 boats being sunk in 4 years is not
but
really that much.
It is a specific type of keel they like.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So there's obviously something about those that they particularly like. But yes, I do agree. The moment we go into an animal's habitat, we run the risk of being part of that habitat with that animal.
Yeah.
So
The other thing was that I think is worth mentioning. This article mentioned it briefly too, but it was in the other articles that I've covered over the last couple of years regarding this phenomena, is that some people are taking guns out onto their boats.
Oh, no, that's silly.
And so far, no one has actually attacked the orcas. Everything's been used as a sound.
Yeah.
To scare the animals away, which is not a problem. However, not meaning to cause too much offense to our American friends, sometimes when you have a weapon in a situation of high stress,
well, a gun on a boat's a bad idea, because if you accidentally point down, you make a hole in your boat.
Yeah, there is that. But guns are not good tools in situations of high stress, and they just want to remind everyone just to try and keep you cool. They did say about making noise, but I don't know how effective that's been so far, but
Can be.
certainly don't be shooting the orcas.
No, it's an interesting one, and this whole situation just seems to keep developing. They're really interesting behavior from those animals that I think as the years go on, we'll see some, real sort of, hopefully, good human orchid interaction. So,
Yeah, I think both species are going to have to adapt to
each
this
other.
new norm. But it is interesting. Like I say, it seems like it was started by a female defending her unborn calf, who's then potentially taught or told or been witnessed by young male orcas doing it. They've then taken it upon themselves, and somehow in an orca version of Chinese whispers, it's traveled up. I'm pretty sure it started in around the Canary Islands or somewhere, but
and then ended all the way up in Scotland.
And all on the way went from defense to this is a blast. I'm gonna do this every day. So yeah, but even though they're ahead of schedule in their location, they have not yet started attacking boats. Those scientists aren't sure if and when that will resume.
Right. Well, shall we head on into our creature feature for this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
Ooh.
It's the creature feature.
Right, well, we're into this week's creature feature. This is weird doing it like this, isn't it?
Yes, this is strange. First creature feature covered together.
Yeah, I think so. Since the zoo days. So yeah. Well, Eric, you've played Pokemon, right?
I have, yes.
Yes, you've probably. Which ones did you have?
What, the games?
Yeah.
I had red, blue, gold, and silver. That's a lie. I had red, blue, and gold. My brother had silver. But they're all in my possession now for some reason.
Fair enough.
I've caught them all.
I'm not quite sure which one it is. I think it's Sun and Moon, which was set in a specific region of the Pokemon world for whatever reason, that featured this particular Pokemon behind me called Decidueye. I think I've done a rather faithful drawing of it.
I thought it was Blaziken.
That's the fire chicken one.
I don't even have any knowledge of that generation of Pokemon. That's
beyond
after me. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I've picked up the game since then. Anyway, we've not lost our minds. This is still a wildlife podcast. It's not a Pokemon podcast.
No.
But this particular bird, it's a grass ghost type Pokemon, which is based on this week's creature feature.
How fitting is it that Pokemon is grass and ghost?
Oh, well, it's very fitting, certainly that it's ghost, because unfortunately it is extinct. So Decidueye here is based on the Hawaiian stilt owl, which is a bird that probably not many of you have ever heard of. And to be completely honest, there is very little information on to actually be able to give you. So hopefully I'll be able to give you as much as I possibly can. Now, the reason why we've got a picture of the Hawaiian Islands behind us as well, which I think I've done a fairly good job at drawing them. I've probably spelt some of the names wrong, but we'll see. That's because that particular version of the Pokemon world takes place in their version of Hawaii. So the definite reference of the Hawaiian stilt owl, this week's creature feature, is what this particular one draws its inspiration directly from. Most Pokemon have got some sort of inspiration in the real world.
Well, the whole point of the games was the original creator, it was his celebration of his childhood, which was going out and collecting insects and amphibians and stuff to just have a look at and then re-releasing them.
And then trying to shove them in a little ball.
I don't believe that ever came into it, but maybe the ball is like a stand-in for the jar.
He's throwing tennis balls at him. Well, what on earth does this creature look like? Because I can assure you, even though it is ghost type, because it's extinct, it doesn't quite look like this. This is a very stylized look, the sort of grass cape and everything. But it is very similar in some ways. Stilt owl, you would probably get the idea that it has quite long legs. It doesn't walk around on little wooden stilts. They just had really long legs. The best way to picture this particular species is think of an owl and stretch its legs out. So it fell into the true owls, and true owls. Aaron, can you name a true owl
I actually,
as opposed to fake owls?
I was going to say, I actually didn't know that they were deceptive owls, but
Yep.
I suppose should have known that. I'm thinking that a true owl is something like a tawny owl or a barn owl, whereas the opposite would be something like a tawny frogmouth or something.
No. So, well, I mean, to be honest, this kind of threw me as well because I've never really looked into owls that much.
No, neither me.
This has taken me down a whole route of looking at owls. So it's the family Strigidae, and that is one of the two families of owls. The other one being Titonidae, or the Titonidae, which is the barn owls. Right. So everything that's not a barn owl or a grass owl is what's considered a true owl. So think
one of the owls that I named isn't even as true
exactly.
Isn't even a true owl.
It's so true owls are things like tawny owls. They'd fit. You could also have the great grey owl, eagle owls, that sort of stuff. They are true owls. Although, if you ask me, they're all owls anyway. There's 230 living or recently extinct species in 24 genera. So owls are pretty widespread animals, and I mean most people know what an owl looks like.
But what categorizes it as a true owl and or not?
I wish I'd have been able to tell you that, but I didn't look into it as that far. So unfortunately, I don't know. I will look that one up.
To be fair, there's a lot of, when we do these creature features, there's a lot of work on just that species going into it.
Yeah,
so as I'm learning for an upcoming Wyson one.
Well, now you've revealed it.
That's right. Spoilers.
So, the other half of its name, obviously being the stilt owl, it's because they've got these very, very long legs, and it's thought that they probably lived a similar life to a secretary bird. And secretary birds are a fascinating species that I can't believe we haven't covered yet. A type of bird of prey that essentially walks around on very long legs and kicks its prey to death. They have a particular taste for things like snakes and lizards, which they will slam their feet down to kill with. Well, there isn't much information to go on exactly how these guys hunted. As you'll find out, they were extinct long before we could really study them. So it's a case of we don't 100% know, but you can make an assumption that an animal that has long legs is probably using them in a certain way. So to give you an idea of scale, I was expecting to be joined by a cat actually this evening.
Yeah, well, I very smartly fed them.
So they're
just as you arrived to keep them from meowing outside this door.
That's fair enough. Well, what I was picturing is a cat walking in and me being able to go, well, compared to a cat, it's about that. They're about 60 centimeters tall. So pretty decent sized bird. If we had one sitting here, it's probably somewhere around that. So, you'd certainly notice it compared to a lot of other owls, certainly on the ground. And that isn't to say that they couldn't fly, because they had fully capable flight feathers and their wings were perfectly usable. So it's just the fact that these guys spent most of the time on the ground.
And that's accepted. It's not like,
oh no, that is definitely
tricks where there's different camps.
No, as far as I can tell, that is pretty much the accepted thought, is they spend their lives on the ground, but they could fly.
Right, okay.
So the name of our particular species, not decidui here, our lovely stilt owl is Gralastrix, which essentially means long-legged owl. Strix meaning owl in any way, shape, or form that you cut it. In fact, there is quite a few owls that have strix in their scientific name. So you'll see it quite often. But Gralastrix means long. Grala meaning long or stilted leg in Greek. So basically sums up what these birds are.
Yeah.
Long-legged owls that spend most of their time wandering around. And just like the amount of Hawaiian Islands, there were different subspecies all the way across the Hawaiian Islands. And a little bit like any of the Pacific Islands, the moment you have a slightly different habitat, you'll have animals adapting to fill that niche. So there was 4 species, and they lived on, and I've got to look at my my notes very much for this one. So the largest was Gralistrix gallicis, which was the 60-centimeter tall one, and that lived on the island of Molokai, which is here, and it was also otherwise known as the Molokai stilt owl. Then you have ones that were found on Kauai, which is up there.
Yep.
Oahu.
Oahu's this one.
There. And Maui.
You're welcome.
I knew you were going to make that joke. So yes, they basically were widespread across the Hawaiian Islands, pretty much all doing the same thing, very similar in shape and size, but the ones on Molokai were the biggest. Now, what was its habits and its habitat? Well, unfortunately, this genus basically suffers from a lack of information, like incredibly tiny amounts of information that are available for people to find. And I spent weeks looking for stuff and have found 1 or 2 bits and pieces, some fairly interesting pictures of some of their bones, and some very nice paleo art that people have done, but that's about it. They suffer from a massive lack of information, and the fragmentary nature of these birds anyway, because the bones themselves are hard to find, as most bird bones are. It basically has meant that we have very little information on them, but we can infer some things just by looking at the way that these guys would have lived. So Hawaii, like a lot of the Pacific Islands, as well as New Zealand, was an island sanctuary for birds. Hawaii had some incredibly rare, or incredibly very rare now, because a lot of them are extinct, very bizarre looking bird species that filled all sorts of different niches. There was a species of ibis that was a dwarf species that was flightless and didn't obviously fly, but spent most of its time a little bit like a kiwi on the floor, eating all sorts of different grubs. Now, we also have the Hawaiian honey creepers as well. They were quite a famous species. And it's thought that our lovely stilt owl would have probably hunted a bit of everything. There were large ducks as well. And you could probably see that these guys might be able to take a smaller member of a duck. But yeah, basically no land mammals on New Zealand, no land mammals on Hawaii, just like New Zealand, meaning that birds and reptiles fill those ecological niches, otherwise filled by mammals and the rest of the world. I think you can tell what's going to happen at some point in this story.
Yeah, so let me guess. There's a billionaire who buys land here and creates his own dinosaur park.
Close. Just as catastrophic, if anything. So these birds would have, like say, fed on all of the different forest living birds around. And in fact, Hawaii as well used to be densely forested in a lot of areas. You raise the point of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
You look at a lot of the background in that scene. So a lot of Jurassic Park was filmed on, I think it was the Big Island, Hawaii.
I think it's the main one, Hawaii.
So there is, well, basically tons of grassland that you see in it. A lot of the forest was cut down hundreds of years ago.
You can see in some scenes, though, in the background how forested it would have been.
Yes, but a lot of that has been introduced species as well. There is an incredibly low level of biodiversity of native species on Hawaii, and it's really sad. So just like any other bird paradise, a lot of the birds nest on the ground. There's no need to really fear anything coming to eat your eggs.
Yeah.
And these owls wouldn't have been any different. And we have examples of owls today that do exactly this as well. Can you name one?
No.
Oh, I can only
really
think of one.
Good with owls.
That's fine.
I'm thinking burrowing owl, but that's burrows.
Underground.
There is. I know that I've seen one in a documentary, but I'm really bad with owls.
Snowy owls. Snowy owls nest on the ground.
Of course, it's a snowy owl.
Because there are no trees in the Arctic.
And I didn't see it. I didn't see its nesting on a documentary. I saw it at the Highlands Wildlife Park.
There you go.
Where the path goes up, there's this rocky outcrop where it used to be, and you could just about see where it was kind of bedding down.
sort of tucked in.
Yeah.
Well, these guys would have done the same. The difference being snowy owls have to contend with Arctic foxes, polar bears, wolves, all sorts of different things.
They're nothing. They're all wimps.
Well, they've blended their eggs in and have evolved specifically around those animals, those mammalian predators. These owls would not have had anything like that. And a polar bear in Hawaii. Hang on, isn't that Lost?
Yes, and funnily enough, I was thinking when we were talking about Jurassic Park, I was thinking there is somewhere else where you can see the exact the Gallimimus scene where they're stampeding. That exact field with that exact angle is in Lost, which brings us to the polar bear in Hawaii.
A very, very lost polar bear, but a very, very bad case for our stilt owl. So, as you could probably see where this is going, it's not going to be a billionaire opening a dinosaur park. It's not going to be
a lost polar bear.
Very, very odd TV series, which I lost interest after the first season.
That's why it was called Lost, mate.
But unfortunately, humans turn up. Yay!
With humans comes
rats, comes pigs, comes dogs. So it wasn't Europeans that got there first. It was the Polynesians first. And just like most of the Pacific Islands, they went from island to island colonizing. It's what humans are very good at doing. Unfortunately, by about 1,000 years ago, so by this point the Hawaiian Islands have been settled by Polynesian settlers who'd brought with them the Polynesian island rat, as well as pigs. The rat was obviously there more in the case of it hopped on the ships, like rats are very good at doing. The pigs were brought with them by people for food, for the same reason that European settlers did when we turned up in the 1700s and did the exact same thing. Except we went, this is nice. Get off, would you? Go away.
Someone's already here.
Yeah, I think you'll find we discovered this.
We're Europeans.
These are better pigs. These are European pigs. But anyway, that spelled doom for our Hawaiian birds. Rats and pigs are absolutely horrendous for destroying ground nesting birds and any chance of their survival. It happened to the dodo in Mauritius. It's happened to most of New Zealand's birds, and it's happened to most of Hawaii's birds as well. So they just dropped off a cliff because they can't cope with those changes. Right. And by the time of Captain Cook coming to Hawaii and European settlers, these birds had been extinct for almost 1,000 years. So people had no idea of them. And if anything, they were actually surviving more in folklore and myth than they did in reality anymore. So it's basically a case that they had long since disappeared before humans got there. And this brings us on to a wider point about Hawaiian wildlife and the extinction rates that Hawaiian wildlife really heavily has an issue with. On Hawaii today, there remain a dozen species that are so extremely rare that their chances of survival as a species are incredibly poor. Some of them have even been written off, essentially. And they're trying to save them as much as they can, but it's very much almost a lost fight.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, some of the habitats are just not there anymore. They've been absolutely destroyed and all gone. There are some species that are already obviously extinct. Another dozen or so species are rare and have an uncertain future. And of the estimated 136 bird species that lived on the islands before human settlement, only 11 are common enough that their future is secure. So we are looking at a really, really quite sad bird graveyard. If anything, if we were to start choosing types for our Hawaiian birds, I think a lot of them end up very much with the ghost type, which is sad to say. So, a fascinating species, really hard to find any information about. But I had a whale of a time looking at them because they are just weird. And there's one further little bit of like pop culture that I wanted to throw into this. Have you heard of the Mothman?
Yes, I've heard of the Mothman. Yeah. Sorry.
So the Mothman is supposedly a giant human-sized moth.
That's correct. Yeah.
And it depends if you want to go with the tick version, spoons. Another niche reference. The Mothman is said to be this creature, this cryptid that turned up in Point Place, West Virginia in the 50s or 60s. And of the many different theories as to what this thing actually is, I mean, I reckon it's a bunch of people who were probably drunk. It's probably the easiest and most likely cause.
Yeah.
They reckon they saw two large reflective eyes glowing out of the darkness and then a pair of wings. There's a lot of people think that it's an American owl, a particularly large species of owl, like a horned owl or something like that.
Yeah.
That was sat in a tree. People find the size of birds quite what's the word? Quite hard to judge a lot of the time.
Well, you find it with cats too.
Yeah,
especially in the British countryside.
Well, definitely. as the news has shown, you can have a puma that's actually just a fat house cat, and people will still think that.
We're actually right now positioned in the village, or maybe the neighbouring village, to where they saw a muntjac, which is a deer, by the way, and thought that was a leopard.
Right.
Yes. People are not good at judging the size from a distance.
So you could tell where you get the sort of glowing eyes in the owl.
Yeah.
So most owls are relatively short-legged. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine walking through the Hawaiian countryside 1,000 years ago as one of these first early settlers, the light of your sort of torch as you wander into this new land, and all of a sudden there's an owl that's standing right in front of you with these two alien eyes peering back at you from the darkness? Would have probably terrified a lot of people just to turn up on an island and see this thing standing at you. And if you ever want to see something that makes owls even more disturbing to a lot of people, is an owl without its feathers. Are pictures.
I've never seen that.
There are pictures on the internet of owls without their feathers, and even more bizarre is pictures and video of baby barn owls that look like little aliens standing there looking at you like that. So yeah, owls are fascinating. They're bizarre. They're weird creatures, and that's our Hawaiian stilt owl for this week.
That was really cool to learn some bits and pieces about it. It's been a couple of weeks. Creature features which there should be more info out there about them, but not. The pistol shrimp last week was it was a bit dry.
He's very wet. He's in the water.
Well, yeah, but not so much information about him. But it's a shame. However, it is important that podcasts like ours and other content forms talk about them, and maybe get some interest raised and have some people studying them.
Definitely. Yeah. Shall we set sail from the Hawaiian Islands towards our emails for this week then?
Let's do it.
Bing! You've got mail. Ooh, it's an email.
Right, well, we're into this week's emails, and we're going to start things off with last week's question, which was, which is the best... Which is the best sorry, all of our New Zealand listeners. Just slipped into it there for some reason. Which is the best invertebrate and why? So... from the various different answers that we had, my other half has put dragonflies, supreme predators at every life stage. Ancient cousins had a wingspan up to 30 inches. Females play dead to avoid males that they're not interested in, and they have beautiful colours.
That's a good answer.
That's a pretty good answer. Aidan Jamil has put octopus. I was hoping somebody would put octopus in there.
I think I mentioned octopus last week as well. Octopus or squid, I think I said last week.
They're pretty ubiquitous animals. Now, I'll read Phil Barber's one out because he's actually put two, and then if you do the ones after his,
okay, he's got a few in that one.
Well, Phil is an invertebrate keeper, so he's going to have a few already up his sleeve.
We were torturing him with that question, I think.
Gigametrus swamadamii for being the largest scorpion. Very pretty scorpion.
And the coolest name.
Cubrus sp, which is the rubber ducky isopod, which if you haven't seen what a rubber ducky isopod looks like, go and look them up because they are utterly fantastic creatures. They literally look like a little rubber duck's face. They're cute as anything. Pseudo Dogolomerus magnifica for being beautiful, and they very much are. Vinegaroons for making me want to go to the chippy. They get their name for the obvious reason that they can squirt acetic acid.
Yep.
And it smells like vinegar. Now, I disagree with him on his next one. He's put Scolopendra for being a badass. I don't like Scolopendras because they are just that little bit too aggressive, I think.
Right.
They're very pretty, don't get me wrong, but they're just a little too aggressive for my liking.
You like inverts of peace.
Yeah, I like stick insects. They don't do very much. They just sit there and they look nice. But they took the angry side of everything. They are the perpetual ball of anger that hates the world and everyone in it.
Well, okay, so where do they fall if you compare the just natural born rage of a Scolopendra to the natural born rage of a wasp? Who
I mean, they eat wasps for breakfast.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they literally
It's
will
hard-
eat a wasp.
It's hard to imagine anything angrier than a wasp.
Oh, they are angrier than they are the angriest of angry. I'm sure Phil will disagree with me, but yeah,
We should get him on to do a creature feature about Scolopendra, a guest creature
yeah,
feature.
that would be good. So he's got Pulchiprophilium giganteum for their leaf mimicry, giant leaf insects, beautiful things, and the sparkle muffin jumping spider, just for the name. I love the sparkle muffin jumping spider.
I've heard
because of its name.
Yeah.
It's a very pretty jumping spider as well. Now this is the one that you'll disagree with him on. Wasps, beautiful predators and pollinators.
No, I won't disagree. They are beautiful. They're fantastic predators, and they are pollinators. Yeah.
Yes, they do exist.
They do things other than attack barbecues.
And he's put finally, no way I could pick just one, and so I had to have a list. Invertebrates are amazing. And how can I only choose one? Stop making these so damn difficult. So, that's his own fault. I mean, it's too hard sometimes to pick just the one, and he's just got to go with it.
Sometimes that's what stumps me sometimes when you ask me the question and I don't know what the question is until that moment. And I'm like, I need a week to think about this. Yeah, they do get difficult. Okay, so I'll carry on with Philip Schofield, who says Rishi Sunak is possibly the worst.
I did say politicians count.
You did say politicians count, did you?
Yeah.
All right, okay. I was going to say it might be a little bit harsh to the invert world.
It is true, I suppose.
Leah Louise Williams says all of them are awesome. They each have their unique place in the world and my heart. Lovely. And Jess Owens says, I'm a sucker for a millipede, but I'll say St. Helena spiky isopod just to give Gareth an excuse to talk about them.
Oh yeah, they're awesome little things. They glow in the dark as well, and it's one of quite a few reasons that I want to go to the island of St. Helena. There's the now extinct giant earwig, which I wish wasn't.
You won't see.
No.
There's no point going there for that.
There's Jonathan, the world's oldest tortoise, who lives there as well. And there's the St. Helena the St. Helena spiky isopod, which is glows in the dark. So it's a woodlouse that's bright yellow and covered in little spikes on its back.
Where does it glow in the dark? Like, is there a pattern or does the whole body glow?
No, the whole body glows. The whole exoskeleton. Okay.
The reason I ask is because when I was in Malaysia, in the jungle there at night in the undergrowth, I found plenty of bioluminescent invertebrates, and isopods were one of them. But they were a dark grey color. If you imagine a large woodlouse or chiggy pig, whatever you call them, wherever you are, a large one of those with slightly spiky flanks, and they had kind of paired rows of these bioluminescent speckles. I remember seeing them, and when the torchlight was offered them, it was a green glow, and it was very bright. Very, very cool. And they weren't the only. There were other things. I want to say millipede, but I don't know if I'm remembering that incorrectly or not. But they weren't the only bioluminescent isopod, the invert that I saw there.
They're pretty cool, and in fact, that leads us into this week's question. What did you just call them, Aaron? Your isopods? What did you call them?
What did I call them? I didn't
You said chiggy pigs.
Chiggy pig. Ah, yeah, okay, chiggy pig. Yeah, that's the region, because I know you'll have a different opinion on this.
Yeah.
But in Devon we call them chiggy pigs.
Yeah.
But there's literally a different name for them depending on what region you're from in the UK.
And this is why I think this week's question, we should open this out even further, because isopods are global. You'll find them everywhere where there's forest, basically. You probably won't find them in the middle of a desert, or you probably won't find them in the Arctic.
You will find them in the sea, though.
Yes, different kind of isopod, but we'll take it.
They look very similar.
If there's any Atlanteans listening who happen to have different names to them as well. So the question is, what do you call a woodlouse? Do you call it a chiggy pig, a chuggy pig, a cheese roller?
Cheese roll, that was the one I was trying to think of. That's the one from up your way, isn't it? Cheese roll?
Up my way. No, I've always known of them as slaters.
Slater, okay.
Which is what they're called in Scotland.
Scotland.
And it's also what they're called in Australia.
Right.
So I've only ever known them as slaters. And woodlice.
Where's the cheese roll come from then?
I'm sure there is a massive map of the UK with them. But the UK has got something like 130 odd different names for these small little isopods, which I think gives them such character that everyone recognizes them in one way or another.
That is, to put that into perspective, that's more than what cougar has. That's more names in one language than the cougar has.
There you go.
Incredible.
So yes, that's this week's question. What do you call a woodlouse? You might call it a woodlouse. You might call it a chiggy pig, a chuggy pig, a Billy Button. Oh God, there's so many of them. I can't remember all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There is a good map, though. I do remember the map. Yeah.
I think we put it up at least, well, probably once or twice. But that question will be going up on our social media where you can get involved. That'll be on our Facebook page. But we do post on other social medias. As you can see from the board behind us there, we're on Facebook. We are on Twitter. It's definitely Twitter. It's not X. Instagram. We're also on Patreon as well. And TikTok. For those of you who are younger. I've been doing some videos out there.
I know. I've been meaning to ask you about that, but we'll do that after the recording.
Yeah. But you can also get in contact with us at our email address, which is thenathistorykcupboard@gmail.com, where you can send in any and all questions that you might have, or a direct amount of names for your chosen isopod. If there's any, like say, if there's any Atlanteans out there, we'll take deep sea names as well. But I don't speak Atlantean, so oh well.
Rusty glub glub.
Which now neatly leads us into our Patreons, which is one of the areas that you can follow us on. Aaron, tell us about our Patreons.
So our lovely Patreon supporters, we like to give a shout out to every week, because they just go. I mean, we're grateful for everyone who takes time to listen, like, share what we're doing. But these guys go that little extra step, or maybe should say big extra step, by committing to some financial support to us, which makes things like changes like this possible. Being able to record in the same place, having our own studio, rough as it might look right now, it will change with a bit of trial and error. But those patrons that support us right now are Chelsea McKee, Connie P, Jen Greenhall, Fogtober, and Nick to Nick. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for your continued support, and it's only going to try and make the this podcast better.
Yeah, we'll get the painters and the decorators in here. You know, we've got the basics, so it's we're gonna have what you say. We're having a shelf, and
yes,
we're gonna have some more stuff. We've got plants. We've got a board.
There's a display case going here, which the Patreon supports. If you've seen the video I put up on Patreon, you'll see some of the stuff that is in that display case that will be coming in here. Yeah.
Well, like I say, you can get in contact with us on all those different social medias, and you can help us out immensely by joining our Patreon, but money isn't everything. And you can also help us out by liking, subscribing, leaving a comment on whatever podcasting service you're listening to us on. Or if you're watching this on YouTube in the future, if we manage to get this video out, then you can review us on YouTube as well. But that pretty much brings us to the end of this week's episode. So, well, thank you for having me, Aaron. This is nice in here.
It's different. Yeah, usually I say thank you for having me. Yeah, no, you're welcome. I'm really pleased with it. Even though right now it's just bare bones. It's just nice to be recording together in person. I already have felt that it flows a bit better with the two of us together. And it's just really cool to have our own space that we can call a studio. Yeah. It's a comfy couch. Yeah. So you're welcome.
Yeah. And a big thank you to you at home for listening. And we'll see you next time here in the Natural History Cupboard. Bye.
Bye.
One does not simply make a cupboard without including a studio.